What I'll discuss in this video is one of the reasons why many people become toxic. Now, this is not an excuse for them being toxic. This does not approve of them being toxic, no. But it's one of the reasons why they end up toxic. And is one of the main reasons why you should not believe everything the world is telling you. Let me give an example to you. Let's say you paid 10 euros each month to a charity organization. You made sure that every end of the month there was 10 euros available. You did this over 10 years. That means for 120 months, you paid 10 euros each month. So 1,200 euros. 1,000 euros you've paid in total in 10 years. Then after 10 years, you wanted to find out what happens to the money you've paid to the charity organization. So you go to Google and you look up their address. Because when you call them on the phone, you don't get anyone. Then you figure out that the address doesn't actually exist. When you arrived at this place, you saw a barn that was in a ruinous state. So you were thinking, what? Okay, first you thought, okay, maybe the charity organization was located over there, but then it moved. So you began to look again. But indeed, that was addressed 10 years ago. And when you ask people in the neighborhood, in the address where you're at, they know nothing about the charity organization. The only thing they know is that that barn has burned down 12 years ago. And since then, nobody bothered with it anymore. So you come to terms with the fact that you have been scammed for 10 years long. What's going to happen? You're going to become upset. Because that 10 euros, it's not that much money, but you should have invested in other stuff. What you're more upset about is that you thought you were doing something good, while in fact you were enriching the pockets of scam artists. That's the biggest part of it that will anger you. But after a while, you'll embrace the fact that indeed you have been scammed and you recover from the anger that you feel. Now, let's go to another example. Let's say that you receive a WhatsApp message from your brother who tells you that his mobile phone has been stolen, so he has a new number, and that he needs 2,000 euros because there's a debt collector after him or whatever. So you think, oh, it's my brother needs me. So you go to your savings account, you get the 2,000 euros and you transfer it onto him. And later you talk to your brother about it, but your brother doesn't know anything about it. Then you figure out that your brother never lost his phone to begin with. And that he had exams at the time that you received that WhatsApp message. What happened? You have been scammed. Someone cloned the WhatsApp profile of your brother and used it to rob you. Because you were the one that fell for it and you transferred the money, then you can't get the money back. So you lost 2,000 euros just like that. You'll be very upset and very angry. Eventually you'll accept, okay, it happens, I need to move on. I can't be being angry for the 2,000 euros I'm not getting back. Now, in both cases, someone feels embittered for a moment, but realize, okay, this bitter attitude serves no good purpose. It's easy for them to see that it needs to process it. But what happens in the world often is that from birth, people are conditioned to see the world a certain way, to see other people a certain way, to think a certain way. They're also conditioned to allow violations of their human rights. that they normally should not expect. They are deformed in a direction. So all the choices they make are based on what's provided onto them. But they think that they're the ones that made all those choices on their own. But in fact, it was the environment that provided those choices onto them. And so when they are maturing, they begin to realize, hold on a minute, something doesn't end up here. But then they're so invested already, they continue. So they end up with sex partners who reflect the expectations they want. Then they have children with those sex partners. Or even if they don't have children, they develop a social circle that reflect those expectations they've been conditioned into. And what happens if one day they hit the wall by seeing that the expectations they're defending and standing for are nothing but self-imposed restrictions that bring forth pollution? What's going to happen with all the relationships they've built over the years? All those relationships are only there to keep them in that toxic restriction. So now they need to face that they are restricted and that restriction serves no beneficial purpose. But for them to face this means that they need to be upset with their parents, whether their parents were aware or not that they were deceiving him or her. They need to be upset with their grandparents, they need to be upset with the local government, they need to be upset with their peers, to the school teachers. There are a lot of people they need to be upset with. But they also need to face themselves. And then they realize, hold on a minute, while I was growing up, there were many red flags that showed me that something was amiss. And then they'll remember all the times that they said that something was amiss, but out of convenience, they ignored it. And then they're stuck at a 9-to-5 job. They develop emotional ties to people that aren't good for them. So what happens? Now they need to face a lot of stuff. Now they need to process a lot of things. And it's not going to be easy. But the only way for them to actually be freed from it is to go through the healing and deliverance process. And that means facing the bitter pill that you've been scammed by most people around you. And those people often were scammed also. Now, a lot of folks, when they are confronted with this, they just become bitter. They don't want to hear anything about it. So when they hear other people complain about things not being right in daily life, they turn on those people. Why? Because they have stuff that don't end up with them that they don't want to face. So when they see others having the courage to admit that something doesn't end up, they turn on them. They'll never get that time back. Their childhood, their teenage years, they'll never get back the years of the early 20s. They'll never get any of that back. They won't. And they need to deal with the consequences of the fact that they've been conned by the world. And if they don't want to, then they're stuck with the toxicity. So they are imprisoned. They have no choice but to face reality. And this is what they don't want to admit. They want to pretend as if they have multiple choice. They want to pretend as if they have all the time, as if they have all the options at their disposal. Well, that's not the case. They've been conned, they've been scammed, and because of that, they have no option at all. Once they face this and they get deliverance, now they have real freedom. But many don't want real freedom. They just want to escape. That's how many turn out as toxic people. Now, that they've been scammed and conned, that's not on them. But the fact that they don't want to face that they've been scammed and conned, that is on them. Let me say like this, if you were born in a ghetto, in an impoverished place, that's not on you. Nobody in the right mind can blame you for that. But if you end up spending your whole life in that impoverished place, that's on you. When you were a little baby, when you were born, There was no option to you. No, there were no options. You were just born there. While you grew up, you had no options. When you were maturing, you now had more options. And you had to realize that you had options and you should have taken the best options for yourself to be freed from toxicity and to be freed from danger. But what if I told you that a lot of folks don't even want to consider they have options? Why? Because they are familiar with the scam, they're familiar with the con, they are familiar with the disappointment. Oh, let me tell you this, some people are familiar with disappointment. Because they are familiar with it, they feel comfortable staying in disappointment. Not that disappointment in itself is comfortable, but they experience it as comfortable because it's familiar. They know what to expect. Once they move forward, they don't have disappointment anymore. So now they enter new terrain. And that means they need to embrace the unknown. That means they need to embrace uncertainty. So a lot of folks prefer to be the victim of how they were raised. They prefer to be the victim of the circumstances than to be a victor and to triumph. Yes, you've been conned, you've been scammed. That's not on you, but it is on you if you remain in the chains that were enforced on you, because you do have options to be free. Well, that's it for now. Keep agreeing with Christ and be at peace.